And eventually this karma yoga, and I mentioned this a little bit the other day, about how all of life, and once we're on a path, a dharmic path, a path of spirituality, and we understand that our own happiness really affects so much the people around us, and that one's actions then are all not for this own ego and this body and whatever, but the actions are integrated, harmoniously integrated for the benefit of whoever can receive them, then really we're able to step onto this path of yoga, like deeply. But it's not like as well, like, okay, that means that there's never any thoughts of selfishness or anything like this. No, that's still there. Like the mind still wants the bigger piece of cake when having to choose between the two. But you notice that. And then you can say, okay, well, either you take the bigger piece of cake if you really feel you have to have it, or you give the smaller one away. So the mind still comes in and plays its like little tricks of greed and whatever, but it doesn't have to overpower you, nor do you have to feel guilty about it either. Because that's the other thing that happens. We feel guilty. I took the big piece of cake. I'm such a selfish person going into all these games. No, you just accept that this is, because we'll talk about this when we do some of Bubba's work, but we often want to try to live with this idealized self, this image that we have of ourselves as being without lies, without greed, without selfishness, without this, without that, living a perfect and pure life and all of this. And we have this image of ourselves as to what that is. And we often confuse ourselves with that idea of perfection, which may never come, probably will never come. And then there's the person who you really are. The person has the personality, the mask as to who you are. And that mask is always changing. It's not an inherent reality. But that that it's important to even come into the present moment of where you are right here. So I want the bigger piece of cake. Okay, I'm greedy in this moment, but we don't need to create a whole scenario and guilt trip on ourselves and everything else. Because the problem with that is that you realize you're being greedy, and instead of giving yourself some positive reinforcement and recognizing that you need that bigger piece of cake, instead of saying, wow, like you recognized it and you accept it. You accept where you are. Instead of that, you take the big piece of cake and then you give yourself negative reinforcement. It's like you slap yourself across the face. So next time that big piece of cake comes around, you don't want to reflect upon how your true feelings are. You just take the cake and then you're on to talking or to doing anything else, but there isn't any real reflection. Does that make sense? So it's important that when we see these negative things in ourselves, we're actually giving ourselves more of a positive reinforcement, even if we can't change it. Because we can't always change these things, even though like we should be able to, because there's free will and we can choose our own destiny and all the rest. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we can make the choice, but also sometimes we can't, and we also have to be careful in not being harsh with ourselves and accepting who we are as a personality, who we are right now.